Okay, welcome to this week's episode of Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. Dai-shihan Miller here from Warrior Concepts here in East Central Pennsylvania. So if you're in the area, by all means, stop at the dojo. You can find the address and whatnot. If you're on the YouTube side, in the description area, if you're on any of the platforms, should be there. The new one should be there based on our recent move. Anyway, so this week we're going to take a look at becoming a hard target in the realm of security, workplace violence, those kind of things. It's my alter ego, right? Corporate workplace violence consulting, those kind of things, right? We talk about hard targets and soft targets, right? Hard targets are difficult to attack, right? They are armored, they are well protected, those kind of things. Okay, there's vigilance, there's security guards, there's cameras, there's all kinds of stuff, right? It's very difficult to get to produce any damage in there, let alone getting close without being detected early. Okay, it's really important to understand. A soft target, on the other hand, right, not very well protected, not guarded, not a whole lot of stuff in place. Okay, so the idea of self-defense training, martial arts training, I'm going to talk about that in a bit, right? Because they're not, in my experience, they are not inclusive. They're not mutually inclusive, right? Doesn't mean that based on one person or another's definition of things that they can't be, but I'm going to talk about those, okay? But what I want to take a look at is true self-defense and how things are. And even for my students that have been around for a while, right, we're going to go back through these 5 Ds that we've talked about, and we're going to put a demarcation line, right, as to where is self-defense and where is fighting, right? Where is something else, okay? Some of you are really smart, you're really intuitive, you could probably jump ahead and know where that is, but we definitely need to talk about it, okay? So what I want to start with is this problem, and I talk about it quite often, right? Where students get trapped in what we'll call technique collecting, accumulation, right? Technique accumulation, kata collecting, those kind of things. And techniques, right, as models, as examples of strategies and tactics in motion, right? A lot of martial arts, this is the foundation, this is the core, right? Masters in the past created these examples, right, of strategic and tactical operation, strategic thinking, those kind of things, right? And sent them forward so that we would have a kind of an expedient, right? Here's this thing that we can work with to start to understand these things. But they're just that. They're a beginning. They're, as Hatsumi Sensei, as my teacher has always said, they're not the end all to be all. They merely indicate a place to start. Okay, so they are important, and we will collect them. But if we're also focusing on understanding and developing strategic thinking, tactical ways of operating to make it as easy as possible to get certain things done, to execute certain techniques, those kind of things, then we're going to start to see that like 70% of the kata we'll just borrow the Bujinkan, right? Across 9 schools, 70% of the techniques all start the same way. So what's being conveyed here? And it's not that you always start a fight or when somebody attacks you, you always do these things. It's not about that. What are those things reflections of, right? What are they pointing to? Which is why it's important, right? So a lot of people get freaked out because I've got this strategic framework, right? They don't teach it like that in Japan. Yes, they do. They just don't use these words, okay? They don't teach it like this, or they don't do it like that in Drunken Monkey Kung Fu. Yeah, they do. People that are really, really good at this stuff, whether they use this terminology or they use this framework or they use something else or they don't describe it at all, they just use other terminology, they're following these things, okay? This is a way for my teacher and our collective instructor guild to put it down in writing in a certain way that would allow students to get there faster, to start the process of strategic thinking and not just technique collecting, kata collecting, right? Same thing with the Godai strategies, right? I don't teach it that way in Japan. I don't care, right? What we're looking at here is imagine this to be like a file cabinet, right? Each of these is a drawer, right? And in each of these drawers, there are major file folders. If you worked in an office or anything like that, right? There's a way to organize things where you have these bigger bins that we could look at, right? So in each one of these, there would be the same set. There would be under wilderness survival. There would be fire starting techniques. There would be water collection, water purification, all kinds of stuff. Right? There would be single hand grab defense, lapel, single hand grab defense sleeve, hook punch, whatever, right? And so what these are strategic responses. They're modes of operating based on a lot of things, feelings, restrictions that I might be governed by, environment, all kinds of things, right? So what this does is take a thing and look at it from multiple perspectives because we don't want to get trapped in only one way of doing things. Okay, we could look at these and go, what's an earth-like martial art? And I'm just going to borrow one because very heavy and very wrestling-like and all that, right? So sumo, right? What's a very water-like martial art? Judo. What's a very fire-like martial art? Karate, right? Right. What's a wind-like? Aikido, right? Those kind of things. I threw void on here just so it would be a complete thing, but this is strategic thinking. This is the ability to combine these or shift between states if we need to, or we are, right? Our mood changes, those kind of things, right? So, but think of these things as a filing cabinet, right? So, yes, they are teaching these things, but they may not use the terminology. They may not break it down the same way. They may not frame it the same way. My job as a teacher is to put things out in a way that makes it easier and faster for my students to get from nowhere to somewhere extraordinary, right? Quickest, fastest, because again, we talk about this all the time. When we're talking about the realm of self-defense, right? Violence is random by nature. We never know when, where, how, what it's going to look like, what tools or techniques we're going to need. So we need a freaking full toolbox. Okay. Right. So anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at, we're going to review the 5Ds, but we're going to make a clear distinction, right, today, where we're not just looking at everything. Okay. And then we're going to take a look at these Godai strategies so we can understand them, so we can jump into tactics, because I want to look at a prioritization model, right? If you were in for this week's Kuden, and if you weren't there live, I hope you've caught up on it. If you haven't caught up on it, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, headbutt you in the face. I'm going to highly recommend that you do that, okay? Because what we did was we broke down the skill proficiency and path to mastery down, and I just, again, I created another framework, right? And I called it the self-defense pyramid, okay? And of course, just like any pyramid, right, the base is wider, it's broad, right? There's more bricks there, okay? So this is foundations, but this is the critical stuff. This is the stuff that supports everything else, okay? And then the next phase up, right, this was more about strategic integration, right? And then we've got a transcendence phase and things like that. Again, you can take a look at it, but what I'm doing is I'm focusing on this foundations stage because, again, this is something that's highly overlooked because people tend to look at the foundation stuff as beginner stuff. And it's not that it isn't, but beginners, there's certain things that beginners should get really, 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 really good at that has nothing to do with style. It has nothing to do with techniques, right? Of course, they're learning them, but it has nothing to do with them. It has to do with strategically handling a very specific set of skills that allow us to get to the core of self-defense as quickly as possible, right? And we'll talk about that again here in a minute, but this has to do with becoming a hard target, okay? What that means is harder to hit, harder to grab, harder to beat, harder to kill, those kind of things, right? So there's goals at each level of training, regardless of the techniques that we learn. And these have nothing to do with belts, belt colors, rank, time in training, whatever. I know people that have lots of time in training, and they should maybe not have the same rank that they have. Okay. And I know I'm being an asshole here, but I'm not the one that gave them the rank. So I got nothing to say about it. Okay. There's also people that I've met who've been training for a short amount of time, very intuitive, picked up on things very quickly. And even though their rank or belt color or time in training or whatever was very short, their understanding and their ability to apply certain things really well was way up higher. Okay. So anyway, all right. So again, big problems is that students in martial arts and self-defense, I don't care if it's a self-defense course or it's a martial arts with a style, clan name, whatever, I don't care. Okay. But they get caught up in technique collecting. Okay. And then the outcome is they have lots of moves, right? But if you can't avoid being hit or being grabbed or being stabbed or whatever, nothing else matters, right? One of my teachers used to say that you have to earn every move in the kata. You have to earn every move, right? So what you're really doing is having these little micro wins in a survival situation, okay? He throws something, you either avoid or you don't, right? And to borrow video game logic, right? Every time you get hit, the longer this thing lasts and all that, the energy bar just keeps going down, but there's nothing to trip over, pick up, eat, whatever, to put it back up. You just keep losing it, okay? And if we understand that self-defense at its core, not what, again, ex-cop here, right? It's not what everybody says when we're pulling fighters apart. The guy's duking it out, right? Trying to win the girl, whatever. Okay, I was just defending myself. Yeah, no, I understand. You were defending yourself against the shit he was throwing at you while you were busy throwing shit at him. But that's not a self-defense situation. That's a fight. Okay, so at its core, self-defense, self-protection, self-preservation is about survival. And the number one, the primary rule of survival is energy conservation. Longer it takes, the more time, people have looked at me like you're fat, you're old, whatever, right? Your O2 use is, whatever. You couldn't last, several 2-minute or 5-minute round, 2-minute or 5-minute rounds. Holy shit, right? Yeah, and you know what? The older I get, the less I'm going to be able to do that. But since the average self-defense situation is over in between 2 and 10 seconds, if managed correctly, right? Way under a minute. Even active shooter situations are done in 10 minutes, less than 10 minutes. Okay. So I'm good. Okay. Because it's not nose to nose, toe to toe. Part of that could be me hiding. Part of that could be me tucking the family away. Part of that could be me shooting him in the face. Right. Because again, when people think about self-defense, right, they think it's fighting. So they think, right, well, if I pull a gun, shoot him in the face, well, that's cheating, right? You can't do that. This is a fight. No, I may be fighting for my life, but let's not confuse the two, right? This is where people start to drop off, right? When they're watching the training and whatnot, is when they start to drop off because I just punched ego in the face, right? Because they're trapped. They're stuck in technique accumulation, collecting, whatever you want to call it, or they're stuck in self-defense equals fighting, right? And so they don't see a difference, right? So I covered that during Kuden. I cover this stuff all the time, right? But why does this stuff matters? Or why does this matter? Right? It matters because if we don't get this right, beginners stay soft targets longer, okay? And advanced students end up, if they lose control or things go sideways or whatever in a bad situation, right? They don't have a solid fallback. Because what I'm going to be talking about today is the stuff that beginners need to get a handle on so that what they're doing, the core premise of the foundations level is to be hard to hit, hard to grab, hard to hold on to if he does grab you, right? Hard to kick, right? Hard to stab, whatever, right? It's to make Jack Wagon's job as difficult as possible at getting at you, and your job at keeping yourself from leaking, getting broken, or whatever as easy as possible. Okay? If we don't handle that, then we're not really prepped for self-defense, no matter how many fucking techniques we know. Okay? I'm not impressed by stuff like that. I'm not impressed by belt colors. I don't want anybody to be impressed by this. Right? It's just there. People expect it, or they don't take me seriously. Right? Trust me. Let's see. For St. Patty's Day, right? Here in the U.S. or wherever people celebrate it. Classes on that day, me and my black belt instructors wear green belts that day. Every once in a while, somebody will look at it and get confused and go, "Did you get demoted?" No, this is decorative. Okay? Or near Christmas time, I'll wear a red belt or a white belt. We don't have a red belt in our ranking system, so people get confused. Like, did you get a promotion? Did you, right? Or a white belt. Sensei, why are you wearing a white belt? Because this, and this has nothing to do with that color. Okay? But if we get confused by it, right, there's traps all over the place. Okay? So what I want to cover today are the things that get beginners self-defense fluent with the foundations so they become a hard target as quickly as possible. That doesn't mean necessarily, right, that they're able to whoop this guy's ass. Because there's a huge difference between self-defense and situational control, where I'm controlling his body, those kind of things. At this level for beginners, I'm not controlling anything but me and a bubble of space that acts as my shield to keep him from getting at me. Okay? But if I get this right and I get really, 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 did I mention really, really good at this, then as I advance and I'm able to do these other things, I'm able to whip locks, holds, all those kind of things on him, and something goes sideways, right? I lose control, or he has two friends that join him, or whatever. I have a solid foundation to fall back on until I can regain control, or until backup arrives, cops, my friends, whatever, right? So this stage is really, really important. But when people are stuck here, what I'm going to be talking about today, for most people, is the necessary evil that they have to learn to get past so they can do the cool shit. What I've learned over 40 plus years of training just in this martial art, right, is the stuff I'm going to cover today. That's the cool shit. Okay? Because if you manage that, unless he is absolutely determined that he must beat you, and if he's an opportunist, you're too fucking difficult. Most human beings don't stick with something long enough, right? Look at how many people are successful. Okay? Look at how many people quit very early on because the dream doesn't match the work involved. It's easy to fantasize about something, but as soon as they realize how fucking difficult something is, they're done. Sorry. That's just the way it is. Okay? You want to be successful? Do the shit that everybody else won't do, right? Because it's too difficult, right? And this goes for bad guys too. If they're an opportunist, if they're a mugger, somebody with anger management problems, whatever, they're not an assassin or somebody that is hell-bent on ending you or breaking you or maiming you, right? If they're not that, there's a breaking point where this is just too fucking hard. Okay? And statistically, right, at least here in the U.S., 95 to 98% of attacks are easily handled by what we're going to talk about today. Okay? 95 to 98% of attacks, statistically, on the crime reports are easily handled by this stuff. Okay? The other 2 to 5%, yeah, you're going to want to stick around through training. Okay? So, all right. The point here, right, is that when violence explodes, survival starts with being hard to hit, hard to grab, hard to stab. those kind of things, right? And if he does get a hold of you, whatever, right, it's to minimize the amount of contact time. If he grabs you, can I get him off of me quickly, or can I use that? If he does hit me, does stab me, does kick me, right? Have I minimized to the greatest of, there's a difference between being hit and being hurt, right? Being damaged. And I don't mean hurt like owie. I mean damaged, where I lose control or ability to use a certain part. Okay. So here's the truth. Most people saying that they're training in the fighting arts, right? Martial arts, self-defense, whatever, for self-defense is like most parents saying that they gave their kid a smartphone for emergencies. You understand what that means? Okay. If I give my kid a cell phone for emergencies, and that's really what I gave it to him for, okay, it can have the minimum cell phone plan. And technically, here in the US at least, FCC regulations make it, and all phones are programmed this way, that as long as that phone has a charge and there is cell service in the area, right, you don't have to be on a cell plan. It will connect to the 911 system. I can't speak for the UK or whatever. You guys, you can always pop it in the comments if that's true or not. But if it was strictly about emergencies, whether I need to contact for them an emergency, or I don't know, they missed the bus and they need to call me or whatever, right? They can have one of those freaking grandma phones that have the big ass buttons on it and stuff, right? Because it's to make calls or receive calls in an emergency. But a smartphone, which is a gaming system and chat and getting on Facebook and all that kind of shit. See, it's bullshit. They gave him the smartphone because the whiny little bastard won't shut up about his friends having one and they don't have one and whatever. And the parent doesn't want to listen to it. Has nothing to do. And if it does have anything to do with emergencies, it's that much. So let's call a spade a spade. Okay? I know nobody likes to hear that kind of bullshit, but it makes it sound good. Okay? Most people that take up martial arts or whatever, and they talk about it being for self-defense, they have fantasies about beating the living shit out of somebody. Okay? I don't care if they have low self-esteem or have been victimized already or they're worried about stuff like that happening. That's what they imagine. They imagine being the guy who wipes the floor with this person. I'm not saying it's a bad fantasy, but how about if to be able to do that, we should recognize the reality is I can't do dumb shit where he will beat or break or kill me before I get a chance to wipe the floor with his ass. This is called prioritization. It's called strategic thinking. Okay? So is what it is, right? So again, going back to the self-defense and the cell phone or whatever, right? Martial arts being used for self-defense, or fighting arts being used for self-defense, or that smartphone being used for emergencies. Can either of these be used for that thing? Yeah, of course. Okay. But by and large, the reality is it's mostly BS. Okay. So the reality is the phone's used for what? TikTok, it's used for games, texting, just like martial arts stuff. People get so focused on the freaking techniques because before he even throws the punch for me to do the kata, right? I'm imagining, or I want to get to the end with him on the ground, him locked up. I want to duplicate what the teacher's doing. This is all right and proper, right? But at the very beginning, there's something I should be paying attention to. And at every stage, there's something I should be paying attention to, or I will never get to the end. People want to know why their techniques mess up. It's because they're not paying attention to the thing in the moment. They're rushing or they're doing things harder or faster so they can produce the end result and not the result of each move. What's the result of each move in the kata? It's like climbing a ladder. You want to get on the roof? Well, then don't miss a fucking rung. YouTube is going to kick me off at some point because I can't keep my F-bombs to a thing. Anyway, right? So again, this is why I hammer this point. Okay, real self-defense training isn't about collecting moves. Okay, it's about becoming a hard target first, right? Through very key points, which we'll go into next, right? So if you don't have that, then the rest is just noise. Not that you can't luck out, okay? But that's also why people learn martial arts. They go through a whole program. self-defense system, martial arts or whatever, and then they end up fighting like everybody else. Or they end up, everything gets reduced to one or two punches, one or two kicks, a tricky move that they like or whatever, and 95% of that training that they got just dwindles off into the vapor. To me, it's a whole lot of wasted time, effort, and energy and money and whatever. Well, I don't know what to pick from unless I learn it all. Well, why bother learning it all? Well, you just decide up front how you want to fight, and then just, well, that's what people do, right? They go on YouTube. Anyway, all right. So let's do this. Let's take a look at this strategic thinking, these 5 phases in any combative situation. Okay, I don't care if it's a fight, right? Like contest, or it's a self-defense situation. These things go through 5 phases. Right? Good news, bad news. Good news is this works. The bad news is it works for whoever is using it. So if we don't know about it and we're not using it, or we learn it but we only memorized it but we haven't integrated it, right? It hasn't become a part of who we are. Well, then shit. Okay? And people don't have to be using these terms or this framework. Some people are just naturally intuitive and they just do these things. Okay? So very, very quickly, right? Discern is paying attention. Right? But discern is paying attention so that I can prioritize. Prioritize what? Technique, movement, strategy, those kind of things, right? What can I exploit? What do I leave alone? Where are his strengths? Where are his weaknesses? Okay? And this is both for a striking, stabbing, kicking, whatever kind of situation, as well as a grabbing kind of thing, right? In a striking situation, it's in that void as he's moving in and setting up before and through the initiation of that attack, because there is a transition kind of thing. In a grappling situation, or one where you've been blindsided, right, and grab, bear hug, something like that, right, it's in recognizing where the force is, where the restrictive stuff is, right, because when we're grabbed, again, energy conservation, we need to be able to relax everything that is not necessary in protecting the life-sustaining systems in that moment. So if it's a rear choke or whatever, right, then I'm going to use muscles and whatnot to keep that from happening, right? I'm going to try to maintain that airway and whatnot. But other things, I want to relax to the greatest degree possible, because if I stiffen everything up and I'm all over the place, I'm just going to cook that energy off. And okay, so where this choke should put me out in what? If it's really, really good, 2 to 4 seconds. If it's average, 7 to 11 seconds. But if I help, it happens real fast. Okay. So, but I want to pay attention. Okay. Defend. What is defend? Okay. Defend is not whoop ass. Right. Defend is in receiving and neutralizing the force of his attack, making his attack impotent. I can do that by evading. I can do it by blocking, right? I can do it by riding it off, right? If he grabs me, okay, what I'm doing is maintaining stability and this plumb position, this upright, on balance kind of position. So when he grabs me, I'm not stumbling. I'm not falling backwards, those kind of things, right? So I need to neutralize the force of it. So what he intended with that doesn't work, right? Which is why we always try to maintain a certain distance between he and I to force him to have to throw like a lunging punch or to take a big step to punch me or whatever, because the first thing I want beginners to be able to do with that control of distance is to make it impossible for him to break your kamae with a jab. If I stand too close and he jabs and I'm doing what everybody else does, right? You've broken your kamae to avoid this thing, but that's why people get slammed with an uppercut or a hook punch or whatever, okay? Or I have to be faster, okay? Well, what about the days when you have the flu, or I'll be 63 here coming up in January, okay? Sorry, nature says I'm not getting any faster, okay? I can be as fast as I can be. I'm actually faster than most people at my age. However, right, it's not about that. right? We have good days, bad days. You may get injured. You may clip something. That'll slow you down, whatever, right? Can't be based on speed. If it's based on speed and he's faster, well, then shit, he has the advantage. Can't be based on strength. If he's stronger, well, shit, he's got the advantage. Can't be based on size. If he's bigger, larger, stronger, whatever, shit, okay? Has to be based on something else. That's why we learn these systems, because their secrets are about doing that something else that strips him of those advantages that the bigger caveman would have. Okay, so receiving and neutralizing the force of the attack. Okay, disrupt is unbalancing. Okay, it's breaking, not physically breaking his body, right? But that breaking of the kamae. If he throws a jab and I do this, my kamae is broken. I have to get my body back in alignment so I have quick, easy, free movement. Okay, unless I'm just going to plant my feet and do this kind of stuff, because there are rules that says that he won't kick me in the junk. And what do people say with that? Well, it's cheating, man. If he wouldn't have done that, I'd have kicked his ass. Yeah, but the reason he did it was because you kept your junk right where he could kick it. You didn't plan for that, right? So, but unbalancing how? Most people think about physically, but we can unbalance somebody mentally. That's called confusion. We can unbalance them emotionally. That's called frustration. Okay, or to give them a sense of doom and gloom because shit, things are failing quickly. Right, all kinds of stuff. Okay, we can also we can unbalance them or break them in a way where their plan is broken. Okay, so disrupt is really either they made a mistake that you're going to exploit, or you do something that makes it difficult or impossible for them to continue on with their initial logic. They've got to change gears. And the more often they have to change, because what we're really doing is winning in microseconds. Okay. So I need to, this is strategic thinking. If I'm going to fight, if anybody's like, I've had kids, now I've got grandkids, right? So I get a chance to watch the kids' movies. If you ever watched Toy Story, right? In the very first one, when Buzz is talking about flying and doing a certain thing or whatever, right? There's this key phrase that keeps showing up in the movies. And Woody says, that's not flying. That's falling with style. Okay? That's what a lot of people do. Okay? They aren't doing strategic thinking. They've got their preferences. Okay? And this isn't the place to be talking about how the brain doesn't do what we think it does, right? The brain doesn't do observational scientific thinking. That's why we have meditation and some of these other systems, right? Our brains are naturally wired to do assumptive thinking. We assume we're doing something because we assume that something is happening. It's not based on reality. Okay? We assume that our feelings mean something outside of an adrenal response. I'm not invalidating people's feelings, but that as soon as those feelings kick in, our processor, it's like putting rose-colored glasses in front of our eyes. So now everything gets processed through that emotion. Doesn't make it real. Doesn't mean that's not what you're experiencing, but it's not the same. Okay? Deliver, this is what most people think about the ass woman, right? So this is here, we take, I'm going to put this differently because normally what I put is execute your technique. We take the fight to them. This is where we knock them back, we knock them down, we get them into a restraint, whatever, okay? We take the fight to them, right? All the stuff up here is setting things up for this. And then this discern here is to reassess what all this stuff did, okay? What do I need to do next, okay? But if we're talking about self-defense, the self-defense part of this is here. Phase 1 and phase 2. That doesn't make defend deliver. It doesn't. It makes paying attention and making sure that he can't beat, break, or kill you the freaking priority. Because if I fail at this, I don't get to do this. Okay? If I screw this up, as one of my teachers was fond of saying, your family better look good in black. Okay? So, again, there's foundational stuff, and then as the better we get at this, our mind is less occupied with where to step, which strategy to use, feeling driven kind of things, whatever. And we start to pay attention to more things, more opportunities to tag him or to kind of catch him. Or if he overshoots a shot and he kind of has to catch himself, we can exploit that kind of thing because we're freeing up the mind to do more. But if we're focused on doing it right, doing it the official way, all those kind of things, well, then that's where we're tied up. Okay, and we're always assessing, right? So, but again, everybody dreams of this, but they have to get to that. And what most people do is they want to skip over this, and that's where the dumb mistakes happen. They just start throwing shit around, like throwing Jello at the wall, hoping that it'll stick as some kind of cool design. Well, it'll stick all right. Right? There'll be juice and streak marks down the. You just have a fucking mess you have to clean up. Okay, so some of these will land, some of these will not. Be more critical about watching sport fights. Okay, how many punches are thrown? How many actually land? How many landed shots or even knockouts? Be critical. Be authentic about this. How many of them? Right? The announcer's like, oh, he landed that right. Except that he threw something and this one happened to land. It was a lucky shot. Not that it didn't hit just like other ones did, but it just happened to hit right. The guy was moving in a certain direction or whatever. How many people throw sniper rifle targeted shots that land where they were intended to land? And how many are like the 6-year-old in a sandbox throwing shit and the other person, right? Very often fights are won more by the winner's attitude to stay in there and keep going than any kind of like tactical or strategic precision. I'm not knocking them. What that means is they're tough motherfuckers from the start. Okay? So you can hit them, and unless you knock them out, they ain't going down. But that's a contest. Okay? If you don't think that if you're out with your family or your grandkids or your nieces or whatever, right? People that you care about and shit starts, if you don't think that part of your brain is going to be tracking where they are so that they don't get taken, hurt, you don't trip over them or whatever, and that splits your attention, then you're not training for self-defense. You're training to be in that one-on-one kind of thing and everything else goes away, except that if you trip over your grandkid and you fall and crush them, and then you get taken out, well, fuck, right? And even if you don't get taken out, who the hell wants to live with that for the rest of your life, right? I don't know. Anyway, so let me get past things on my notes here to make sure that I do not miss anything that I really want to make sure I got out here, okay? So, again, today's focus is on phases 1 and 2 because this is what we need to get really, really, really good at first. Then later, we're going to get really, really, really good at this and recognizing opportunities. And then we're going to get really, really, really good at this and we're going to know when the thing that we did to disrupt them, where we have them. And then we have them because we can put a whoop ass on them. And if we do this part right, the disrupt part right, he can't stop us from doing this. He can't defend, he can't escape, he can't counter, he can't attack us while we're doing it, that kind of thing. This is not trading shots anymore. Okay? So this is an important thing too. But anything below this dotted line right here, 3 and 4, that's doing shit to it. Yin and yo, yin yang. Okay? This is preventing him from doing shit to me that ends everything, turns the TV off, and this is doing things to him. Before we can do things to him, we have to make sure he doesn't kill us. Okay? So prioritize. Okay? Just like for Monday's Kuden, the thing I ask at the very end, being honest with yourself, where are you on here? Not where you think you are, where are you? Okay? Can somebody throw whatever they want, and this is your default, and you don't have this imperative need to put your hands on them or to, do 6-year-old stop sandbox kind of thing to stop them. And advanced people, you should be so good at this that you can toy with them. Okay, it's the feeling in the Kukishinden school, that nine demon gods school. Okay, in the beginning, right? Because you have to remember when you're looking at our nine schools and people are learning techniques, what they're missing is that none of our nine schools have a beginner's level scroll. And don't give me the shit about the Shoden or the Jodyaku no Maki, because that kanji for Joe doesn't mean beginner. That's the kanji. It's not the same show as in Shodan. That's the kanji as in Jodan no Kamai or Dai-Jodan no Kamai with a sword. It's upper level, high level. Chuden no Maki is middle level. Okuden, those kind of things, right? That's highest importance to lowest importance. It's not what Westerners normally translate it as. Okay, so um, we have to prioritize, right? So why is this the foundation, right? Well, for beginners, this is the first milestone. For advanced people, when control slips, when shit goes sideways, that kind of thing, this is where we fall back to, because this is what allows us to regain control. But if this was shit and we jumped over it to get to whoop ass mode, and whoop ass mode falls apart, then we have no foundation. We have nothing to fall back on to reclaim things. We'll just keep struggling to win the fight because that's all we know. Okay? So let's take a look at these Godai strategies very quickly. Again, there's a lot of people that think this is bullshit. They don't teach this in Japan. Stephen Hayes made it up. I don't give a shit if he did or he didn't. I don't care. Okay? What I care about is that these are strategic modes of operation that can be categorized simply for a student to make it easier for them to remember and keep it in their head. Okay? So, chi, earth, right? This is holding your ground. Okay? And there's two reasons why you might hold your ground. One, he doesn't bother you. So from an emotional standpoint, it's Urkel threatened to punch you, and you are fighting back the urge to laugh rather than be afraid or be worried, right? Or you don't have the space or the time to move. So I might just have to throw something up there to stop that from happening, because I just stopped my car, put it in park, climbing out because I'm going to go into the store, and I got out and the door is here and the door frame is here, and I'm still in that wedge. Can't back up, can barely move forward. This was a surprise attack. I don't have space to move, right? Or it could be that I don't have the time to move, right? For whatever reason, I forgot to pay attention when I'm out in the world and I'm fucking scrolling and I happen to look up, make sure I'm not going to walk into a sign and what's actually coming at me is a fist, and I don't have time to do cool taijutsu evasive movement. So I fight from where I am, okay? Or I'm boxed in or whatever, okay? So here, right? So in this case, right, almost all of Tagagi Ocean View is here, because even though we're moving, a lot of people think that there's no movement here. Even though we're moving, we're corkscrewing this guy into the ground at my feet so I can pin him with my knees, I can restrain him, those kind of things. Tagagi Yoshin at one point was a bodyguard system, but generally speaking, Tagagi Yoshin is for fighting in tight spaces. In ancient Japan, it would have been indoors, because they didn't do what the West does and have big ass rooms, high ceilings, whatever, right? Okay, so how do I do things in a way? Because if I just do a normal ganseki and he can put his hand out and put it against a car window or a wall or whatever and jam that throw, fuck, right? But if I corkscrew him down, I can be in a box and drop him. Okay, this is what I mean by being able to see strategy over technique, because there's how many different ways to drop somebody straight down. Right? Okay. So, sweet water, right? This is defensiveness, right? And these things come right off the mandala, okay? So this is defensiveness. So this is long range defensive angling, right? To stretch him out, to break his strength, to slow him down, right? You get him to chase you, right? And you're using indirect angling, so he's wasting his time forward. He threw everything here, and now you're over here, coming in on. Okay? So think ocean wave, whatever. You're pulling back, stretching him out, and then crashing back in. Think baseball pitcher, right? 95-mile-an-hour fastball, because he just isn't built to go and have a, right, 95-mile-an-hour fastball, okay? So, again, if we were to back this up a little bit and think about Japanese martial arts, chi or earth, right, this ground holding and stuff, right, it's very sumo-like, right? Kumiuchi, fighting in armor, right? See this water fitting in with what he's doing and kind of catching him and things like that, right? Very judo-like, jiu-jitsu-like, right? Ka, fire, this is preemptive, right? This is Cobra Kai, strike first, strike hard, right? But it's not running into a fist, right? It's taking advantage of, like, if this guy needs to wind up to punch me, okay, I'm going to be in there before that punch heads in my direction, right? Or if he's a hook puncher, I'll show that over here with the tactics. If he's a hook puncher, right, I'm going to move straight into that eye of the storm, okay? Because he's going to go around and he's leaving space right here, okay? So this is preemptive, direct action. No wind up, no haul off to go. Got to be able to go. Who, when? This is evasive. Again, it's another indirect kind of thing, right? Tricky timing. Okay? Think of flanking maneuvers, right? He thinks the fight's going on in front of him, and next thing you know, you're beside him. Okay? That kind of thing. Flanking and trapping. Okay? Trapping. Okay? This is like the door in one of those comedy movies where somebody's about to bash in the door, right? Because it's locked. They got to break in the door, and just as they go to hit it, somebody opens the door and they fall on their face. That's a trap. Okay? That's a trap, right? Coup, again, avoid is recognizing that, like, shit changes. Okay? You can be really, really worried about this person and staying back away from him, and then realize that he doesn't know how to fight well, and he whatever, right? So I change my tactic. Okay? Or this could also be the way I communicate to de-escalate, to confuse him, those kind of things. Okay, so again, these are different ways to do it. So what I want to do is I want to look at, for today, just to keep this short, I want to look at this from the context of evading punches, kicks, stabs, clubbing attacks, those kind of things, right? I'm going to keep it very, very simple, but it's not limited to this, okay? There's a way to look at this from a grabbing attack, but it depends on the grab, right? We'd have to split it down, right? And we'd have to look at, okay, it's a bear hug and your arms are pinned high, so you have use of your lower arms. Or is it a bear hug where it's pinned at the elbow or a little bit below and you don't have use of your lower arms, right? Single lapel grab or clothing grab, but is it here? Is it here? Is it here? Or is it on the sleeve? When it comes to sleeve attacks, is it high on the sleeve? Is it at the elbow controlling your arm? Or is it down here, low sleeve, or at your wrist? Okay? All of these things matter. Okay? They all matter. Right? So let's just look at this from a punch, kick kind of thing. Right? So, and again, angle of attack, we'll do that too. Okay? Because what we're really looking at right here is, from this neutralization, is the big thing we're going to be looking at is evasion. Right? How do I stop it from hitting me? How do I prevent it from landing? Or if it does land, I'm moving with it, and so I minimize the amount of damage with that movement. Okay? Okay? Now, I'm going to make an assumption here, and I probably shouldn't. I'm going to make an assumption that when you're training, you're paying attention to the limb that's coming at you and the line, the path that it's taking. Because if you twitch and execute your technique, your first move, because that's what the kata says, and you did it just because he started to move, but you're not paying attention to how he throws the punch, because he can throw a straight punch like this. He can throw a straight punch by rotating his fist, but I'm doing something with my elbow and shoulder right now that you can't see, and it's uncomfortable, right? Because if he rolls that over, see the slight, it's a little bit of a hook, a little bit of a pocket that's going on in here, right? And it's also opening up certain things. That'll be important for later. But right now, it's how do I not have this jack me in the teeth? There's this kind of a hook, there's this kind of a hook, there's this kind of a hook, right? And each one of them is coming into a different place. But more importantly, they're creating space in certain places around you, and space is diminishing in certain places around you. So to get really, really, really good at neutralizing this, we have to learn to move into the space that's growing or staying the same and not moving into the fucking space that's diminishing. Okay? Sounds easy, but it's not, because we are wired as human beings to move 180 degrees away from danger. So when that hook comes in and it's coming around this way, we're going to flinch this way, which keeps us on the line of the attack, which is why we learn those angling kind of movements and things like that, so that we get off the line of the attack. Okay? So, let's change this thing over here. Right? So, for this earth thing, right, to just kind of hold him off, whatever, right? We're talking about a basic block, right? Pen's crapping out on me here. So, okay, we're putting up a block, right? We're putting up a wall, okay? So, basics, right? Basics. The attack is coming in as an arc. So, we're just going to meet it, high or low, right? The answer to a circular attack is a straight line movement, okay, or a barricade. The answer to a straight line attack is circular movement. Again, on the basic, right? So if he's coming around to hit me, this works. Even the MMA stuff, this kind of stuff works. I don't like this. I understand it protects my brain, okay? The problem with this is I can't hit him at the same time I'm protecting my brain. Our tactics, if we understand our kamae, allow us to guard and attack at the same time. So instead of this, if I guard in hoko, I can be controlling the center of the fight, which is what the scrolls say, and from right here, right, I can stop that from happening and hit him or kick him or whatever. But I'm not either or. I'm not either defensive or hitting. It's not either or. Okay. So defensive long range. Okay. What we're going to do with this is I don't care if he throws a hook, because if I go back at the right time and I go to an angle, he's going to chase me. And so if I move last second, that hook is eventually going to straighten out and look like a ski, which is something advanced people need to be working on. Stop training off of a ski like the classical model, because nobody in today's world does that, and start training off of hooks so that you move to the correct angle when you evade it, so that when you end up where you are and you have him stretched out, it looks like he threw a ski, but he didn't. He can throw whatever the hell he wants. Okay? So in this one, he attacks, okay? And I'm going to use indirect angular movement, right? So I can come back in on his center, okay? I'm making him fall forward. I'm stretching him out so he misses, okay? Preemptive direct action, okay? We're going to say that he threw a jab to set me up for a right hook, but I'm too far away for a jab, so I don't even have to flinch against it, because if I know he can't reach me, if I still have a flinch response, it's because I'm afraid and I don't trust my techniques. I have to trust my kamae. I have to trust my techniques. So if I know I've got that distance controlled and he throws a jab, and even if I do flinch, the whole body moves with it, that's broken kamae, okay? So in this case, it's not about the jab that I'm dealing with. I can leave jabs alone. I've defended against the jab by controlling proper distance and forcing him to fight me the way I want him to fight, not based on his preferences, okay? So that right cross comes around. We're right back to this guy again, right? Comes around with that right cross, except this time I'm moving in on his ass, I'm going to move right into that hole that he left because he threw this. It's not powerful. But to throw a hook, you leave an open window, which is why we throw straight line things, even things that look like it's a hook. I do this, right, to come around. What I've actually done is thrown a straight punch and used my footwork to bring that around. It's not my shoulder and arm because the weapon, I don't care if it's a sword, a staff, a spear, a knife, nunchaku, gun, fist, the weapon is also a shield and it's always in shield position, which is why we punch this way. See, everything's covered. See it? Okay? We don't punch this way because he has an easier job of moving and accessing things. So when you're learning our techniques, you're learning them against this thing, which is the hardest thing to defend against. It's the hardest thing to find openings on. So if you can find it on this one, then you can find it on somebody who's doing something different. Okay. So with this one, now on this one, could I move backwards? Could I move it at a diagonal here? Yeah. Could I block? Maybe. Okay. But my opportunity, straightforward. Not, okay. Everything moves straight in. He's aiming to hit a point right here. And it's only the size of his fist. So for most people, based on the fist that's coming at you, you only need to move half your head width. From the front, it's this much. And some of us have more to move. Okay? So you only have to move half. If it's coming in from the side, that's right. Your skull is longer than it is wide, right? So I need to, but this is from the knees and the legs, right? I need to be able to just drift into that. Not a big step, not a big leap or whatever, but everything has to move at the same time. And then you're in there. Because the goal at that point is he misses. Yeah, but Sensei, now you're close enough that he can hit you. Now, if you do this correctly, what you'll find is that you moved in and now he needs to do something extra to deal with you because now you're too damn close. Remember, he threw the punch because he could work with that. But when you move in, that's a problem. Okay. The evasive stuff, again, we're going to go back to straight line kind of stuff because we tend to stay farther back. Not so far back that he's going to bum rush us or do something different or draw a weapon or whatever, but far enough back that a jab's not going to work. He's going to have to step. He's going to have to overstep, right? So, again, he's coming in straight line. And now, right, either way, okay, we're going to flank his ass. Okay, so he comes in, shoop, okay, and now he's busy missing over here. Oh, that's not where the fight is anymore, dude. The fight's over here. Okay, so this is what I want to get really, really, really good at, right? I want to get good at not being able to be hit or grabbed or kicked. Now, later on, we'll talk about grabs. If he grabs me, I have to be really, really good at either neutralizing that because when somebody grabs you, they're grabbing you to do one of three things: push you someplace, pull you someplace, or hold you in place to do something else. Okay? So first thing when I'm being grabbed is I have to keep from being destabilized. Right? So I need to kind of drift with that and settle so it's harder for him to do that. And when he grabs me, advanced level students, you should be way okay with people grabbing you. Because one, when he grabs you, he just took a weapon out of the fight. Yeah, but he has you. He has my clothing. He may have me, but I know exactly where that hand is. And he can't hit me with it unless he lets go to do something else. He can't stab me with it. He can't. Okay? He grabs me. Thank you. Awesome. Okay? So I may let him grab me so that, right, I can watch that other thing that's happening. Right? But when he grabs and I move, I'm using the anchor point that he gave me to stretch him out, to help break balance. Okay? That's later on. For right now, if we're not looking at evasion, if he grabs you, it's how do I get him off of me as quickly as possible? Get really good at those basic releases, right? Watch for beginners. Yeah. And that's what we give beginners because they work quickly and they work well. Okay? If he surprises you, you're watching him, and you didn't see his buddy over here, and his buddy suddenly has a handle on your wrist, and you look at your wrist or look at the buddy because you were surprised, and now this guy jacks you in the face. Now you got a problem. Okay? Well, you had a problem to begin with because we didn't train to prioritize. Okay? So becoming a hard target begins with making it difficult for this guy to grab you, hit you, stab you, whatever. After that, you can look at all this other stuff that people see as cool. This is just a way to bring everything under control and end things. This might take a little bit longer to end it, but for most, when he can't hit you, when he can't continue to hold on to you or whatever, okay, what I tell you about human nature before, okay? He's going to say, fuck it. You're too damn difficult. It's easier to go get somebody else, right? Just go back to lying in wait, and okay, just like a lion or any other predatory animal, right? If the prey eludes for too long, the predator goes back to take a nap to try again later because they're just cooking off energy. It's going to be harder and harder for them to catch them because they're running out of steam. Okay? Remember, the predator is attacking for lunch or your wallet or whatever. Okay? The prey is doing what they're doing for life. Okay? There's a difference, which is why most predators, believe it or not, get away. Okay? Unless that predator stalked in just right or whatever. Okay? Bird of prey has to pick its moment to take it. Right? Same thing with the coyote that's sneaking up on things. It steps on a freaking dry twig and snaps. That predator or that prey is gone. Right? So I know what we see in the documentaries. Oh, it's sneaking up on its prey, and yeah, but they miss more often than not. Okay. So anyway, all right. So again, techniques are tools. Okay, techniques are tools, but please don't forget that kama evasion and evasive footwork, tai sabaki, body management, naname, moving to the right angles, those kind of things. These are all techniques. Okay, they're not kata techniques; they're waza techniques. They're actions, right? And these are the ones that save us to be able to do the other stuff that we fantasize about, or that if we're a cop, security, or whatever, we need to put our hands on them and hold them down, restrain them, those kind of things. But the longer we engage with this person, the more we risk their friend, hell, a good Samaritan coming in and tackling us because he turned a corner, saw me restraining this guy yelling, right? Because he went from, I'm going to kill you to help, whatever, because he's a wuss, right? Right? This guy turns the corner, sees you in the dominant position, makes an assumption because the human brain is an assumptive tool, not an observational scientific tool, and then rushes in to save the victim from the aggressor. And now this guy's up. He knows who you are. What? Right? Shit changes. Okay? So techniques are tools. Strategy is survival. Okay? Be hard to hit. Be hard to grab. Be hard to stab. First, get really, 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 really good at that skill before you worry about anything else. Now, it's my suggestion. You can do whatever you want. Okay? So, Friday, we're going to run through several different ways to do these. And even for those who have seen certain ways or whatever, we're going to borrow from techniques and whatnot that run through the different lineages and things like that, and take a look at, and then Henka and whatnot, to take a look at examples for how to do this and why it works. Okay? Not just for evasion, to neutralize his advantages, to neutralize his speed, to neutralize his strength, to neutralize his size, those kind of things, right? Because it's not just about avoiding. If you avoid on the wrong angle, if this isn't here, if it's over here and it's not far enough away, right? You avoid that one. But a lot of people, I did it in the beginning, right? I got offline with this one, missed it, bet I'm close enough for him to hit me with the next one, because he will. So I don't just need to avoid one, I need to avoid one and be out of range for the next one. Every move has to make his job harder and harder at hurting me, while making my job easier and easier to escape or to counter. Okay? That's why we spend time learning 1,000, 2,000-year-old systems that have survived, and not just make assumptions and make up our own shit. But again, my opinion, based on 40 plus years in the art and using this shit against bad people in the world. Not just in a dojo, not just in a sparring or a competition for a trophy or a belt, or okay. Screw it up. In my old world, counterterrorism, undercover work, that kind of stuff, you screw it up, they hand your family a folded flag. Okay? So, what's that phrase from the Bible? The wages of sin are death. Sin means to miss your mark, either in planning or in thinking or in acting. If I miss, okay, as a warrior, there are no do-overs. I don't get to talk smack and tell him I want a rematch. Right? So anyway, that's where I'm going to wrap this up. Hopefully you'll make it. I do not have the sign-up thing. This is for you, those of you who are on live at the moment. I do not have the sign-up page done just yet. It will be done here after classes. So later this evening, a couple hours, it'll be up and ready for you to register for that class if you want to be in on it. If not, no harm, no foul. I'll see you next training, whatever. Okay. But that will be the link that you're going to go to, right? So we're over at onlineninjaacademy.com, strategic evasion masterclass, right? Because that is the foundation. If I lose control doing Seion, Tangeki, Kyogi, any of these kata, or my Mushadori falls apart or whatever, and he catches himself and he's back in it, he goes right back to slamming and slinging, and I need to go right back to making sure that he can't beat me, break me, or kill me before I can put my ass whooping on him or my ninja escape techniques and get the flock out of Dodge. Okay? All right, that's what I have. I will talk to everybody again next time. Be safe, train hard, and as always, if you're in the area, stop in. Love to see you.